So what I'm going to do, I'll just do a quick meditation and then let Chen take over. So he'll come in basically through me and talk to you guys. So if there's anything you want to ask him or any questions or anything you want to qualify, just feel free to ask at the end. He does talk quite quick and he talks for a long time. In fact, he talk non-stop really if he's given the chance. So just bear that in mind, but obviously Terry can kind of guide him and let him know when's appropriate to stop. Okay, so I'm just going to close my eyes, do a quick meditation, and then we'll get cracking. Good morning to you all. My name is Chen. I'm Andrew's guide, and I consider myself to be his principal surgeon in the practice of psychic surgery that we practice. So again, I would like to reiterate what young Terry has already said, and welcome you here to this particular workshop. As I'm sure those of familiar faces that I see out there smiling back at me already realise, I have complete control of this physical being, if you like, that's known as Andrew, able to converse and talk through him, and more than happy to answer any questions or anything that you would like to discuss in more detail. So firstly, I would like to place some background because I feel it's quite important to do that. So myself and Andrew have been working together for quite some time and connected with young Terry quite some years ago now, basically because we realise from a spiritual perspective that there is a lot of problems here on planet Earth, as I'm sure you're more than aware. And primarily, the first start of the work that I performed was through the physicality. So I would place my hands, or Andrew's hands, on a person, and we would perform what we termed at the time as psychic surgery. This would be a vibrational change in the etheric field, and we would remove or rectify problems in the etheric, and these problems and vibration would then manipulate and mirror themselves, if you like, a sinking back to the physicality. So in summary, if someone has a physical problem, a disease, the disease will be replicated in the etheric body. So if we remove the problem from the etheric, then that would resync itself back to the physicality and the disease would be potentially removed. That was the grand concept of the way that we first started working together as a partnership. It became quite apparent very quickly that the sorts of people that we saw, those that had some quite difficult diseases and quite difficult problems to rectify, also had spiritual invasion, if you like. They had other entities connected to them, they had earthbound spirit connected to them. Both of these things, if you like, were the spiritual part of the physical disease. And it became quite obvious to me at the time that we were unable to rectify the physical aspect of the problem that people had, the disease, unless we cleansed the etheric and removed these, what we termed at the time as attachments, which I'm sure you're all aware of. So, if you like, it's a spiritual cleansing, primarily. Once the spiritual aspect of the being and the etheric is cleansed and removed of anything that shouldn't be there, the vibration that's negative, then it gives the human being the opportunity to start to move their vibration in a positive direction, and of course this then encourages healing. So if we look at the world today, there's much going on, most of it's negative in vibration. This planet vibrates quite negatively, generally, but it's starting to change. And through the work that I do with young Andrew, it became apparent that mental health problems were going to be the #1 problem for not just this country, but every country across the whole planet. And this is why, at this point, myself and young Andrew, unbeknownst to him, started to change our direction. So I decided that rather than working one-to-one with physical problems, which of course is very good for the people that we worked on, we were unable to address numbers in terms of population. So if each healer can do 4 or 5 surgical operations on physical people per day, you need thousands and thousands of people to actually make a difference. And it became very obvious that the mental health problems were going to explode across the world due to a number of factors. Obviously, in the Western countries, you have the problems with substance abuse. So a lot of the drugs and such like break apart, or as I term it, they perforate the etheric field. And if the etheric field is perforated, it basically allows negative connection, negative attachments. And when these negative attachments attach to a person, of course, they then start to change the thought pattern and start to encourage negative behaviour. So they start, again, more substance abuse, more anxiety, more depression, many of the mental health problems you start to see. And it's of no big surprise that the younger population across the planet are starting to suffer with these types of mental health problems. Now, whilst I was working on the spiritual aspect, conversing with my other colleagues in spirit, we formed a team, if you like, the same way that you have a workshop here. We formed a team and we did some due diligence to see what sort of numbers we were expecting in terms of people and population to suffer with these sorts of mental health problems. And very quickly it became apparent that these numbers were going to be astronomically huge, and therefore all of the medical health systems, your National Health Service in this country, but all the other medical health services across the world would be very quickly unable to cope with the amount of problem people presenting themselves. And of course, when that happens, these problem people don't find help, or they're unable to fund help themselves, which means that they're left out in society. And if they're walking around in society and they have attachments and they're hearing voices and such like, then effectively you end up in this problem place whereby your society starts to break down, because you have people that are being untreated, that are walking around performing negative acts on their fellow humans. And this, of course, is what you're starting to see. It's in the newspapers and on your media on a daily basis now, that someone with mental health problems that's hearing voices has stabbed somebody or shot somebody or is attacked somebody. And this is just going to increase. It's going to become a huge problem for society across the world in this particular planet's evolvement, if you like. So that's why I'm here today. That's why we joined with young Terry quite some time ago, and I can assure you that there's a big group of spiritual entities that are working behind the scenes that some of you can talk to, some of you are aware of, some of you may not be aware of, but the team behind me, if you like, is getting bigger and bigger, and it's starting to connect into different countries, and we expect this work to basically propagate itself on a worldwide basis. So if you like, at the moment, you people that sat here are the pioneers, from our perspective, of this type of work, and you're joining a very small band of very individually chosen people. So you're not here by accident, you're here because you've been chosen to be here on your own benefits, and you have the right skill set and the right numbers to start to make this change.